Well, welcome to episode 2 of Cinema Makeup School's Talking Shop, an SFX podcast. I am Kim Lonning, and I am here again with our Chief Academic Officer, Andy Schoneberg.
That's me.
Yeah. So last time we talked about one of the films you worked on at Stan's, Jurassic Park, and we're here talking about another film you worked on at Stan Winston Studios, Edward Scissorhands.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You're like, oh, surprise to me.
What movie? Oh, you know what? Wait just a second. And I can look like I didn't go anywhere. I just reach down under the table and I pull out this.
Hey.
This is an authentic, this is my Edward Scissorhands crew t-shirt.
Wow.
That we got on the film. So that was fun. Back in the day, they used to give crew jackets and crew shirts at the end of filming, and this was the one for Edward Scissorhands. I have one for Batman Returns. I have a crew jacket for Jurassic Park, etc. I didn't bring the Jurassic Park one in, but
that's okay.
I'm making up for
You're making up for last
my
time.
past errors. So there. And I'm well.
Nice. Good. I'm glad you're well.
We can hang this somewhere, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we could put it... Sorry. Cinema Makeup School. We could put you...
There we go.
Oh.
We all know it's Cinema Makeup School. This is what we're talking about today.
Yeah, Edward Scissorhands. There we go. Lovely.
Scissors for hands.
What a crazy concept.
Hand scissors? No.
So, speaking of your time at Stan's, were you already at Stan's when you were brought onto the project, or were you brought into Stan's specifically for the project?
I was just finishing up on Gremlins 2.
Okay.
Well, I called actually after I got laid off at Riggs, and everybody got laid off. It's the end of the movie and huge layoff. It was a 100-person crew, so I called Stan's, and I knew that they were busy. I'd heard another guy at Riggs talking about what they were doing over there, and I knew they had Predator 2 and Edward Scissorhands, and everybody wanted to work on Predator 2, and nobody wanted to work on Edward Scissorhands, because when you take it just at first listening, it sounds kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's like, a guy's got scissors for hands and he's a gardener? I don't get it.
Yeah.
But that's, I guess, the point of it is...
You're like, I'm getting paid either way. So.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said, I told John Rosengrant, I said, when he was interviewing me, he said, which project do you want to work on? I said, I think I'll work on Scissorhands.
Because you had just done Gremlins 2, so you didn't want to do another sequel.
Not another sequel. And especially, I love the Predator movie, but I just couldn't imagine them doing anything to make it better. And when I heard that it was Predators in New York, I was like, yeah, I'm out on that. I got to work on Scissorhands.
So, what you did on the film was you worked on the iconic scissor hands.
I built the hands. When I got on the show, Dave Anderson and some other people had already built the blades, Richard Landon. They took the designs that were done by John Rosengrant and Shane Mahan. John did the left hand and Shane did the right. I think that's how it breaks down. It might be the other way around. Shane did the brass one and John did the copper one. It had all been designed, and they had gone through town to various shops that had scissors and antique scissors and all kinds of stuff. And they picked handles for the blades and then machined the blades out of steel so that they didn't warp and they were nice and smooth. And put them all together and then molded them. Then we had silicone molds of all 10 scissors when I started on the show. But they hadn't taken into consideration the fact that those scissors were going to have to be reproduced with a slot in them for Johnny's fingers to go into.
Yeah.
So I had to retrofit casts of Johnny's hands into the molds for each of the scissor blades. And that was an exercise in advanced mold making.
Yeah, how was the process of retrofitting the hands for Johnny's hands?
Well, we had the silicone master molds, and they didn't want to re-pour them. They just wanted inserts made that would key into the mold. They had to be flexible also because they had to be extracted from the blades once they were poured up in LW 101, which is LW stands for liquid wood. It's a Polytech product that was used extensively in the industry for rigid urethane parts at the time. I had to clay up each of Johnny's fingers with a key on it that would fit the mold, designate a spot for that mold, or that key in the mold, cut out the silicone in the mold, and then re-silicone it with this fresh key in there. But it involved taking each individual mold and putting a core in it for Johnny's finger. John and I talked about it. I was given a set of instructions, do it like this, and I had a thought on the way to doing it like that might make it better. So in my typical state of being independent and not checking things with my boss,
I could do it better.
I thought, well, this will work, and it'll get it done. It'll be better, and it'll still be done on time. So I did all of those steps and got it done on time. Mm-hmm. And John looked at it the next day and goes, "This is what I told you not to do." I said, "Yeah, but it's done, and it's better, and it's on time." He goes, "Yeah, okay. Just check with me in the future if you're going to do something like that." Okay. So that got me past step one. And then the next step was I had to take the designs, the drawings, and translate them into 3D. So I had positives of Johnny's hands again, mm-hmm. and some sculpture house clay, which was the standard of the industry back then. There were all the blades, and then there were all the knickknacks, the springs and cables and all the other stuff that got added in after the fact. So, and then there were weird handles and contraptions and Dr. Seuss looking things that there were springs that went on the sides of the hands, down the arm, and connected to the suit. And all of that had to be replicated. So I sculpted all of those things, molded all of those things. The sculpture for the back of the hands was probably the most involved mold I did. A 2-piece silicone mold on that. I had to modify the mold to fit the nut that the wing nuts go onto, and there were 2 on one side of one hand, and then there was a little metal piece that had to be put inside this thin part of the sculpture of Shane's blades because it would have been too floppy if it didn't have some reinforcement in it. And I had to put a hole in it that a spring connected to so that when the finger was going back and forth, the spring would stretch and give it a little animation. That mold had a lot of layups in it, and then there were Teflon tubes that were laid in for springs to slide in and out of so that it looked like things were connected internally when they weren't really.
That's cool. How many pairs of hands did you have to actually make?
We poured up enough parts to make 12 pairs of hands.
Okay.
But we only built 6 during production.
You had extra spare parts just in case?
We had stuff in case the blades all broke at once, which we, of course, figured they never would. And on our last day of filming, we broke every pair of hands we had.
Oh, no. How did that happen, if you don't?
We were shooting in a commercial freezer. Mm-hmm. It's the scene where Johnny is on the ladder sculpting the portrait of Winona. Mm-hmm. And it was real ice, and he was whacking the real ice cube with these hands, plastic hands, and they just weren't having it. It was freezing temperature, frozen blades, and hitting hard ice, and we broke something on every pair of hands.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, at least it was the last day.
Yeah, and it was a lot of just waving the hands around, so you didn't really see much of anything.
Details or anything like that. What were some of the other effects that were that Stan's crew was working on? Because I know that they had like an old age makeup on Winona.
Stan sculpted that himself because, as he told us, you guys don't know anything about old age. So, and he probably was right. He was the senior person on staff there, or not on staff. He owned the place, of course, but I thought he did a great job of sculpting Winona's makeup. I liked the sculpture and I liked the application. I have to say, it was the first makeup I had seen of V's in person, other than Johnny's, of course, which was theatrical. And we were shooting in a very yellow room. It was lit very yellow, like candlelight almost. And V had really pumped up a lot of yellows in the makeup. And I looked at it and went, boy, that's a good stage makeup, but I don't know if it's going to look right on film. And it looked beautiful on film.
So Edward Scissorhands was based off like art from Tim Burton about how he felt in school and everything like that. Was there added pressure from him or production when creating like Johnny's character?
Well, yeah, I think Tim has a really clear vision of what he wants internally, and he can sort of express it. And then it's up to, he doesn't give you too much information because I don't think he wants to steer you that hard.
Yeah.
When we were doing the dressing for the end of the hand for the sequence at the end of the film where Winona comes out with the hand and says he's dead, and there's noodly parts hanging out of the arm, we went to Tim with, John Price and I went to Tim with a hand that we had with pieces fabricated coming out at the end, springs and mechanical looking stuff. And Tim goes, no, that's not it at all. He said, have you ever seen those diagrams that people do of the simplified circulatory system of the human body? I said, yeah, I think so. You know where it's a red line and a blue line, and they just kind of break into smaller blood vessels. And it's not how it really looks. It's just somebody's cartoon idea of what it looks like. He said, we don't have to put in stuff that looks like mechanical apparatus to make it show how that Edward works. Yeah. We know that Edward works. We've seen him through the whole movie. He said, it should be like those representations. It should just be something wacky, and the audience will buy it because, of course, we've already seen Edward working. Yeah. It's just what's inside of him. So we came back with bits of leather and fabric and more fanciful stuff in there. And Tim said, perfect.
Was there any more notes that Tim had, like when building the hands too?
Not really on building the hands. I think he looked at them. He didn't want them to get too steampunk. That just wasn't the direction that he was interested in going. And I think that might have been right at the beginning of all of that. But we applied that note to any other things that we had to build for the show, that it was already established that Edward functions because Edward is there functioning. Yeah. So we thought, well, that frees us up to do a lot of stuff. And we got a little more fanciful in our approach to things, doing things. The other one was the first day of filming, where we had a pair of steel-bladed scissor hands that could actually cut paper.
Oh, wow.
And we showed Tim that, and he goes, yeah, I would never use that like that. Okay. Day one.
Yeah.
We're making a big impression. He said, well, I just want to do it real exaggerated, where maybe Johnny's just doing this, holding a piece of paper, and there's chunks of paper flying all over the place. And I said, well, you could just do that with a hose, blowing air, and some paper scraps. So the special effects guys got all that stuff out, and they showed him what was possible. And Johnny stuck the hands in there and was doing that. Tim goes, that's great. Let's do that. Let's shoot it.
So he was having a lot more fun with the project. As opposed to like where you guys probably approached it like, okay, logically, how would this work?
Right.
He's like, doesn't matter.
Right.
It's a fun movie.
Logic doesn't matter. Yeah,
no.
It's right out the window. We're shooting in Florida, just outside of Tampa in a subdivision there. And they paid people to not move into the subdivision so that they could repaint their houses and they used 1/4-inch plywood sheeting and sheeted over all the detail in the houses and then painted them those crazy colors.
Oh, wow.
So it looked like a whole neighborhood of just crazy houses, and it was for that period of time. We went by, they turned it around so quickly when we wrapped that we went by the neighborhood on the way to the airport out of town.
Yeah.
And the houses were all put back to normal, and it was boring.
There needs to be more fun painted houses.
We're like, wow, this looks like any neighborhood you could drive into, the new subdivision. You know, so the art department did a great job of making it look like that.
And the neighbors, studio.
The neighbors, some of them wanted their houses left that way at the end of production, and I don't know if they let them do that.
Yeah.
But
it's an HOA, they might not.
Yeah.
HOA can be particular.
That reminds me of a Johnny story. When we were shooting the scene where Edward is running up the road to the castle castle is on this mountain, and there are no mountains in Florida.
Nope.
We couldn't find any mountain or a hill or anything to shoot on. It was all just flat. So there was a dump nearby, and they dug a big hole in the dump and shot from the bottom of the hole looking up at the castle.
Yeah.
And that's how they were able to get a low angle on it. They had to dig a hole.
That's so funny. Oh my God.
Yeah. So Johnny is running down the street to the entrance to the castle. And it's about a block long run. Johnny's a smoker. He's dressed in a full leather outfit, head to toe. With his hands covered. His eyeballs are covered with contact lenses. He's got crazy hairspray in his hair. The only thing he didn't have on was a wig, but he had hair extensions. So he ran that a couple of times, and he goes, I don't know how many times I'm going to be able to do this. And I said, well, let me slow things down. So they had been sending a van to pick him up at the gate and bringing him back to his starting point. And his driver, Cheech, I just said, Cheech, we're going to walk it. He goes, oh, okay. So he takes off, and I pick Johnny up at the gate, and we walk back so he's got more time to recover. And the second time we're walking back, I say something to Johnny, and I turn, and he's not there.
What?
And I go, where the hell could he have gone while we're walking side by side up the sidewalk? And I look, and I see him in a backyard, leaning up against the fence, puking. I'm like, oh, no.
Oh, no. You guys pushed him.
So I run to craft service, and I get some water for him, and I come back, and people are like, is Johnny okay? I said, no, he's fine. Fine. Get back, and he uses water, swishes out his mouth a little bit. We walk back up there, and he does one more take, and he says, I got one more left in me, so it's got to be one of these we've already shot.
Yeah.
And so Johnny did the last take, and then we got out of there. Cut to a month and a half later, we're shooting on the Fox lot. And as you walk into the stage, there's a miniature of the neighborhood there. And Johnny goes, look at this. We're walking in one day, and he goes, look at this. He says, you can tell every house in that neighborhood where they are and all that stuff. He goes, that's Peg's house, and the neighbors, and that house is where I puked in the backyard. And he looks up at me and goes, thanks, man. Continues that up to the castle. But it's that was used for the shot at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
The beginning of the movie where Winona's telling the story, and the camera kind of flies over the neighborhood and then tilts up into the mansion from there. As a little sidebar, I gave the first AD a bunch of crap one day on set in Florida when we got to day 63 of 60. So I said, well, you're kind of over budget by 3 days. He said, no, he said, I'm more than that. He said, according to production, I'm over budget. But according to how long I told them it would take to shoot this movie, I'm right on schedule.
Production didn't listen.
Yeah.
Same old.
And when we wrapped, he said, now you see, it's 83 days, and I told him it would take 83 days to shoot this movie.
He was good at his job.
Yeah, he said, I'm good on my schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite memories from either Stan's studio when making the build or on set during this production?
My recollection, and of course I find that my egocentric brain is completely wrong sometimes. My recollection was that I did everything in the shop to build the hands. And then there's this picture of Dave Grasso and me sitting painting the blades, and I'm like, oh yeah, Dave worked on it too.
It was all me.
It was me. No, my good friend Dave Grasso worked on it too and did an excellent job. I got to do things, they kind of left me alone, and I got to do things my way.
Nice.
Because they were all focused on Predator.
Fair.
And they did some great stuff for Predator too. They had cool paint jobs, and designs were a lot more intricate than the original, and they did a great job. John Rosengrant was supervising that project, and John is very particular about what he wants. And he'll hold you to it. If you don't get it right the first time, you'll get it right the 10th time. You know?
I know we have him somewhere around the school, or at least we did for a while, the little Edward figure.
Mm-hmm.
Because you gave those as little gifts, little tokens.
Yeah, what I did was I sculpted a 12-inch figure of Johnny in the suit to give to Tim as a wrap gift. Yeah, and it just was that kind of a thing. So I measured Johnny. I had this sculpting book, a really good sculpting book called Modeling and Sculpting the Human Figure by Edward Lantieri. He had a very particular way of scaling things up and down. And I thought, I'm going to try that. So I mapped out the magic chart, the way that he said to lay it out, and measured Johnny and put all those measurements along the baseline. So I did a scale model sculpture of Johnny and then put the suit on him.
Does it surprise you that Edward Scissorhands is still popular?
Yeah.
You're like, what a silly movie.
I didn't know how people would take it.
Yeah.
I know I had a great time working on it
Mm-hmm.
because of everybody on it. The actors were all super cool. Alan Arkin was so funny. And Diane Wiest was great. And Winona, of course, I love Winona and Johnny. And they're fantastic. It was a lot of fun to sit and chat with.
Even every year at Halloween when we have our costume parade, there's at least one person dressed as like Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah. I was glad that it did well when it was released, but I guess I didn't anticipate the staying power that it's just this perennial favorite. It's a Halloween or Christmas movie.
Yeah. Because
it takes place at Christmas time. Somebody said, some director, I can't remember who it was now, and they'll see this and be offended. He says that there are 3 movies that you make when you're making a movie. Mm-hmm. You make the movie that's the script, you make the movie that you shoot, and you make the movie that you edit.
So, what do you think he meant by that? Like, where obviously the script changes a lot even when you're filming, because sometimes you get to a point where you can't do what the script wants you to do.
Yeah, I think there are compensations made for things to make them function and look their best on set. Mm-hmm. And the writer can put anything in the script. Mm-hmm. It can be, and then he turns into a giant balloon and flies away on the sound of a fart.
I would love to see that movie.
Yeah. Then realizing all of that is a little more difficult. We had those kinds of conversations with Tim, and Tim was really great to work with, I thought. I was there with a guy named John Price, who is not in the business anymore, but he's one of the funniest people I know. We were there for 3 months just putting the hands on Johnny. And it didn't start off that way.
No?
We had a pair of puppet arms that had mechanical hands on them that were clearly not human, but they were roughly based on human anatomy. Mm-hmm. But there were holes that went all the way through them and all of that, so that it was clear that it wasn't the guy's hands in a glove.
Yeah.
So we get there, day 1, we unbox the arms, and comes time for Johnny to get into the arms, so we put the harness on him, we put the arms on him, we cover everything up with appropriate bits of leather. Mm-hmm. And then I'm on one arm and John's on the other arm and stands there with Tim, and Tim didn't like him. He came up to me and he said, "Are these going to take a half hour to get on every time we put the arms on?" And I said, "Yeah, it's a half hour anytime." Yeah. He said, "So anytime we're shooting close on Johnny, I got to stop for a half hour and put the arms on." No, I don't think I like that. Uh-oh. Day 1.
Always a good impression.
The day 1 jitters. And then he said, "Take them off, take the arms off." So we took the arms off, and Johnny did it with the glove hands, and Tim said, "Yeah, I'm going to shoot it like this. I think he's good enough with the hands." So that relieved us of all of that responsibility. And it meant that John and I were then there for 3 months to put gloves on and off of Johnny Depp. It was a different movie than what we built for.
Yeah.
And I ran into that at Can Be years later on House of Wax. It was, we built all the effects in the shop and then shipped everything down to Australia. Mm-hmm. And I got to Australia and I had a production meeting with the producer and the director and everybody. And I called up Howard afterwards and I said, "Howard, the movie that we built for is not the movie that they're shooting."
Oh, no.
I said, "We've got to rebuild everything because we thought it was going to be a schlocky horror film, and it's going to be much better than that.
Because that kind of speaks to the benefit of having like a shop person, like person with shop experience on set as well with these effects, because things can change. I think back to the story you told, I forget what movie it was, and you might remember if I start telling you, with the dog that you guys built that was the wrong breed of dog. What movie?
That was Wonder Boys.
Wonder Boys.
And it wasn't the wrong breed of dog. It just
didn't look like the dog.
Didn't look like the dog. But my friend Jeff Boccaccio sculpted the dog, and Jeff's an excellent sculptor. But it just, when they brought the dog in, because I took the dog puppet out of the box, and the director, first thing he says is, "That looks nothing like the actual dog." And I went, "Oh no," because I was told by ADI that, "Oh, it'll be easy. It's just taking the dog out of the box, putting him on the ground, put the dog back in the box. We'll send a makeup touch-up kit, but it's all painted, and you won't need to do anything." And I just was working on that dog constantly.
Oh no. Nothing is ever as easy as it seems once you get to set.
The minute they tell you it'll be easy, the cakewalk, the curse is on.
Thank you for joining me today, and thank you for watching. Again, hopefully you're there, and we're not talking into the void. If you're interested in becoming a practical effects artist or seeing more about what we do, please keep following us on our social media and visit our website at cinemamakeup.com. We'll see you next time.